Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. All right, and welcome back to another edition of Topper Talk podcast. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Topper_Talk. I've got my main man Tyler here with me, man. Tyler, welcome back. We're ready to do another show. Feels like we just did it, but we're back to do it again.
Well, if we can do it twice in a week, the more the merrier, I believe. I'm excited for this episode. We're going to be for what we're talking about. I'm in a position.
Yeah, we are starting our position breakdown series. This is kind of where we really start to get into the meat and potatoes of the football season that's coming up. We are really going to deep dive into every position, talk about all the names, all the changes, who's here, who's not here, kind of what we expect to see from everybody. And we're starting it off with the coaches. The coaching staff is going to be a new look this year, a lot of new faces, a lot of new names. Helton has kind of shown that he is, a magician in the portal, as I like to call him. I have famously called him a portal magician, and I really feel pretty confident and pretty good about what he's done on the coaching hire side of things, as far as who he's been able to bring in year after year and kind of replacing people that have moved on, because that is a symptom of winning and being a winning program. And that is what we have been. We've had a lot of successful seasons, record breaking seasons the last couple of years. And with that comes turnover, both in the player department and the coaching department. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to start with the head coach, that is Tyson Helton. He is entering his fifth season as the head coach at Western Kentucky University. He is 32-21 overall, 3-1 in bowl games. And really, he's the guy that drives the bus. That he is the head coach. Is his first head coaching job. Obviously, he was the offensive coordinator here, during those magical Brom years, and now has come back and really just been everything you could hope for and ask for, and really has just been a solid, just good head coach. I mean, we've had a few games. We haven't won the big game against UTSA a couple times. Obviously, we had to let down against North Texas, but overall, as far as the moves he makes as a program manager, you could call him, finding talent, developing talent, bringing in talent, that's players and coaches. I think it's hard to argue with what Tyson Helton brings to the table. And we all know that he did flirt with a couple of job opportunities this last off season. It was well documented that he talked to UAB and to Purdue about potential job openings. Ultimately decided to come back. We're glad to have him back. Obviously, a coaching shakeup, be it via termination or taking another job, isn't always a fun thing to deal with, because usually it leads to player turnover, coaching turnover, and just a lot of unknown. Whereas keeping Helton on, keeping him here for another year at least, what we're going to get. We're going to get a high volume offense, an offense that throws the ball around, a lot of yards, a lot of points, good, exciting quarterback play. So yeah, just Tyler, I'm gonna kick it over to you now. How what do you feel about Tyson Helton? Entering his fifth season, kind of been a steady hand for the program. As we dive into these names, he's one of the few returning coaches. So, what do you think about Helton and the job he's done and what to expect this year?
Well, Helton has brought, the excitement back that we lost with our previous head coach. He brings the excitement on the field and he is a portal magician. He really gets those names that people overlook, like in quarterback and maybe wide receivers and stuff. And he just really knows how to light up the scoreboard and light up the fan base in there. He's not all about that brand, the Nike brand that the last young head coach was all about. But no, I'm excited that he is back. I'm glad he didn't leave for greener pasture, as some people would say. But no, I'm glad he's back. 32 and 21 overall, 3-1 in bowl games. I mean, the dude knows how to coach, and as long as we can keep him, I'll be happy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's hard to argue with the success he's had. And he's winning more ball games than he's losing. That's all you can ask for. Now, as we dive into the rest of these coaches, um, some of these guys, the positions as coaches left from last year, took other jobs, other opportunities, whatever it may be. Some of these jobs have turned over more than once. We hired somebody, then that somebody got hired away, and now we've landed on someone else. So several of those positions, we're only going to cover, who was here, who is here now. We're not going to have that placeholder in the middle and discuss somebody that didn't even unpack their bags in Bowling Green. So as we go down the list, bear in mind that we are just talking about coaches that are here today, this season, the season that's 58, 59 days away now, as the countdown tracker is underway, getting closer, ever closer to kickoff. So the first coach, position coach that we're going to discuss is the assistant head coach. He also covers special teams and safeties. He is a returning coach, and that is Andy LaRussa. It is his fourth season on the Hill. He's helped the WKU defense rank 8th in pass yards allowed and 28th in total yards allowed and 41st in points allowed per game in 2020. So again, we've had a pretty solid defense. And he's been leaned on as an associate head coach, and dealing with special teams and safeties, kind of the back end of that defense. He's really kind of been a consistent and steady hand. And, a guy that's been around now for 4 years, almost Helton's whole tenure, nice to have on staff. You know what you're going to get with him, familiar face, and especially as, we're going through the new motions with some of these other coaches that are turning over. It's nice to have someone in the building that can say, hey, here's the expectation, here's what we're doing, here's the breakdown of the week or what you're going to be expected to task to do. So, I think anytime you have a veteran, somebody that's around, especially like this guy, and being an assistant head coach, and on the defensive side of the ball, we know what we're getting on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball is kind of the biggest question mark in most of our years, because especially this year, we've had a lot of turnover player wise and coaching wise. So it's nice to have a steady hand of leadership on that side of the ball, even if it's not the DC, if it's a position coach, someone that's been there, done that, and has been through, the off-season program, the game week program, the team meetings, etc., getting ready for the season that's about to be underway, recruiting, and just everything that goes with it. So having a guy back like Andy LaRussa is definitely a solid thing to got. So Tyler, what do you think about Andy being back? A solid, steady hand.
No, I'm really glad he's back. You see some of the safeties that we've had, like Kincaid. He had a great career on the Hill. And special teams. I mean, look at what Haggerty did. Just moving, swapping, flipping the field. I mean, he had special teams up really good. But no, you look at them numbers: 28th in total yards allowed, 41st in points allowed, and 177.3 in pass yards allowed. The guy knows what he's doing back in the back end of the defense, and yeah.
And then moving on, um, next we're going to talk about our defensive coordinator again. That's another guy that is back. It's going to be his second year on the Hill. That's defensive coordinator Tyson Summers. Before coming to the Hill, he most recently served as a defensive analyst for Florida during the 2021 campaign, where the Gators finished the season ranked 25th in the nation in passing yards allowed per game. And he brings to the Hill 20 years of coaching experience. So, I think we can all agree that last year, I think we saw a more steady hand, a more consistent defense, just not allowing that big play. It just felt different than what we had under Mo Crum. And I'm not trying to toss shade at Mo Crum. He moved on to another opportunity. Gave it his all while he was here. But Tyson Summers, does bring a lot of experience and just a sure, steady hand. And, granted, it's a small sample, 1 year as defensive coordinator, what we've seen from him, kind of got thrust into that position unexpectedly last year. But I think, he made the most of it. Being a defensive analyst for an SEC school like Florida, he's been through it. The SEC is kind of the biggest stage in college football. The biggest heavy hitters are there, um, and he was breaking down and looking at those, those defensive schemes and players and teams on a week by week basis. So, anytime you can bring somebody like that to the Hill and keep them here, bring them back after a stellar season last year, bring them back again for a second year, that continuity is only going to pay off no matter how much player turnover you've had. You have a coach of his experience and magnitude back. It's going to be a strong unit just because you've got a good leader there at the helm. Tyler, what do you think about Mr. Summers coming back for year number 2 on the Hill?
Man, I ain't never gonna hate on it whenever a former SEC, football, defensive analysis or anybody from the SEC comes back to the Hill. That they say that's the toughest conference in football, and hey, I'll take all the help from them I can get, especially someone who's been in the game for 20 years. I mean, that guy had to pick up a thing or two along the way, and yeah, just to mimic what you said, yeah, he was thrust into it kind of last year when just kind of on a whim, but heck, the dude's numbers was pretty good last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving forward, we are going to start talking about some coaches that have changed. We've had some turnover. The first one's going to be the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. Obviously, last year that position was filled by Ben Arbuckle, who ultimately took a job at Washington State after his just stellar performance in the New Orleans Bowl. Since then, we've hired Drew Hollingshead from Mississippi State. It will be his first season on the Hill. He has arrived as our offensive coordinator and quarterback coach in January after a 3-year stint at Mississippi State under Mike Leach. With the Bulldogs, Drew Hollingshead spent 2 seasons as the offensive quality control assistant before being promoted to the inside receivers coach ahead of the 2022 campaign. And while he was being mentored by legendary air raid coach Mike Leach, rest in peace, Hollingshead helped Mississippi State finish 10th in the country in passing last year and 4th in the country in 2021. He also helped Mississippi State quarterback Will Rogers finish 3rd in the country in passing yards 2 years ago and 10th last year. Of course, we know who was number 1 those 2 years. So, still company you keep. This is a guy that knows how to spread the ball around. And before his time in Starkville, Hollingshead also spent time under Leach at Washington State. So they had, quite a rapport with each other, quite a relationship. And Mike Leach is known as being kind of that innovative offensive mind, that guru, that genius, that was really one of the architects of the air raid principle offense. So I think anytime, now that 3 years, 3 offensive coordinators, we've gone from Kitley to Arbuckle. It's hard to pick up and replace and keep improving on what you had, but this is really exhibit A of a not a good hire, a great hire. You lose Arbuckle, who was his first year as an offensive coordinator, and just had an amazing year. Led the nation in passing with Austin Reed. And then what do? You go out and find Mike Leach's protege, Drew Hollingshead, to come to Western Kentucky and lead our offense. So I couldn't be more pleased and what I've seen from him on social media, recruiting, and just out there looking for playmakers and guys that want the ball in their hand and want to spread the ball around. Um, I'm glad to have him on the hill. I think he's going to be a solid hire. What I've heard about him, through back channels of what kind of coach and what to expect from him, it's going to be more of the same. And I like what I hear, and I really am a big fan of this hire. Tyler, what do you think about him?
Man, I think this was a big time hire. Once again, the SEC connection. I like how Hilton went, and instead of just having one offensive coordinator and he gets hired away and we had to start over brand new, Hilton had two offensive coordinators. We lost Ben Arbuckle. Understandable, but hey, with Drew Hollingshead, I think this guy, he's going to be an air raid man. That's going to lead to huge numbers for Reed and Corley and all the returning receivers and new receivers and tight end. I mean, I think he's going to have them slinging the ball all over the field. I'm really excited for this hire.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The next coach we're going to talk about is a defensive line coach. Last year, that spot was occupied by Kenny Baker. This year, we have hired Carson Hall from the University of Georgia. Again, an SEC school guy. This will be his first season on the Hill. He came to us after a 2-year run at Georgia, where he helped the Bulldogs to a 29-1 record and back-to-back national championships. Hall helped the Bulldogs to go on one of the greatest 2-year runs in college football history, only losing one game in consecutive national championships. As an assistant defensive line coach in 2021, Hall helped Georgia go to a perfect 12-0 in the regular season before falling to Alabama in the SEC championship. And he also previously coached at LSU, Illinois, and Valdosta State. And in his playing career, he also played football at Georgia from 2015 to 2017. So this is a younger guy, a newer, new to the head coaching ranks, newer, hasn't been out of the game that long. To me, that tells me a couple things. One, it's a position coach. This is somebody who is going to be an up and coming guy, somebody who could be a defensive coordinator down the line. And he also has been in the trenches. Has been there, done that. The guys that he's down there coaching, trying to coach up to have their best game, best performances, and be ready. He's been right beside them doing it not that long ago and doing it at a high level. At Georgia, that's one of the premier programs in the country right now. So to bring somebody with that experience, that pedigree in, that can relate to players, and I'm sure, going out and recruiting, showing off some championship rings and bling bling that he's, surely accrued there at Georgia, that's going to help. And I like having young blood on the coaching staff. And that's exactly kind of what I see here with Carson Hall being hired to run the defensive line. Tyler, what do you think about Carson?
Oh, I mean, I think it's a home run hire. I mean, for him to help Georgia go 29-1, I mean, you know how ferocious Georgia's defensive line was. They's always putting pressure back there on the quarterback or stopping the run. I think we couldn't have hired a better guy for the job. And you're right, since he was younger, played for them from 2015 to 17. I mean, he knows how to speak to the younger players or the recruits to where maybe some of the older guys wouldn't know exactly how to do it.
Yeah, and then keeping on that same kind of fresh face, we're looking at the wide receivers coach. Last year, this was position filled by Josh Crawford. The last couple of years, and now we've hired Michael Spurlock from the Green Bay Packers, so an NFL guy. It will be his first season on the Hill. Last season, he was a special teams assistant coach in the NFL with the Packers. And Spurlock played in the NFL from 2006 to 2014. And he previously coached at UTSA, Southeast Louisiana, and his alma mater where he played football at Ole Miss. So again, we're talking about a guy with SEC experience at UTSA, a big conference rival for us the last couple of years. They've obviously moved on to the American, and then went to the NFL, played in the NFL, coached in the NFL, and now he's coaching and recruiting and training. One of our most vital and deepest positions that we have. And can show and point to guys, hey, this is how you get to the NFL. This is what you need to do. This is how it has to be done. And you can come through Western Kentucky. I'll show you the stats. We got receipts of some quarterbacks that sling the ball around. You come here, we'll put you in the league. And I know it because I've been there and I've done that. So again, another hire that I am just thrilled by. Just that pedigree. Again, it might be unknown as far as in the college ranks, being a wide receiver coach, but his upside is unlimited right now, in my opinion, with just everything he can bring to the recruiting trail and the energy with the players, and that experience of, hey, I've been there, I've done this, and I did at the highest level in the NFL. So how do you feel about Michael Spurlock coming on and coaching our wide receivers?
I don't think it's never a bad thing whenever you can get previous professional football players to come in and coach your players, wide receivers. Because you're right, he can tell them, hey, if you want to get to the league, you got to do this, this, and this. I mean, Helton, he just went all out this season, didn't he? Getting coaches come in. That I think this is an awesome hire, and I'm really excited to see what them wide receivers learn from him.
Yeah, but wait, there's more. we've got more. We're just scratching the surface here, man. Next, we're going to look at the running backs coach. Last year, this was Enrique Davis. This year, we have hired Andre Crenshaw from South Dakota State. Obviously, it would be his first season on the Hill, where he served as the running back coach at South Dakota State during the team's run to the 2022 FCS National Championship. Before that, he coached at Southeast Missouri State, Dakota Wesleyan, Morehead State, and Tennessee Tech. During his playing days, he played at Oregon from 2006 to 2009. So again, it's another coach that played at a high level, played at Oregon, the Nike school, and now the last couple of years has been coaching at a team that won the FCS National Championship with South Dakota State. So, at the highest level of the FCS. And now, his talents have been noticed and recognized. And he got the call up to join, just a good young staff and bring that energy and that knowledge and that know-how to our staff and just see, what he can do. And, obviously the running game isn't as big a focus in our offense, but at the same time, we have to have that threat there that, we have to have a running back and be able to lean on that at times, because there's games where they're dropping 5 and, hey, you want to leave the running game open, then we're going to take, 5 yards every time we hand the ball off. We have seen games over the last couple of years where that's what we've done, kind of hit them with those body punches and then get the big blow over the top to, put 6 on the board. So I'm excited about this guy. Can't wait to see, how the running backs develop under him and the recruiting that he brings to this staff. So how do you feel about Andre Crenshaw and his abilities on staff?
Oh, I think it's like I said before, I think this is a great hire because you're right. I mean, we saw some games last season where teams were dropping back, some more players to limit Austin Reed and throwing the ball. But I think the running backs is definitely going to benefit from having Andre back there, and he has championship, winning in his blood. I think I think he'll be a great hire to come in and really get these players going. And, we haven't, another person from Oregon. We had Daywood Davis come through, And just to get another guy from that's Bennett, Oregon, I think that's another big get.
Yeah, absolutely. The next coach position we're going to talk about is our defensive backs. Previously, last year, that was Kenoto Hudson. This year, we've hired Devon Brown from Ole Miss. So, another SEC guy. I see a theme to some of these hires. We're going out chasing some top experienced talent. This will be his first season on the Hill. He joined the Hilltoppers following a 2-year stint at Ole Miss. Brown was at Ole Miss as a graduate assistant in 2021 before being promoted to a defensive analyst in 2022. Last year, he helped the Rebels defense hold opponents to 25 points per game while producing 19 first turnovers. And during his playing days, he also played at FAU from 2016 to 2019 under his boss at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin. So, you know, again, this is another younger guy who has not long ago been in the trenches, been in the fire, played, under, everybody knows who Lane Kiffin is, kind of where he's been, what he's done, scorched earth, and kind of rebuilding his brand and his coaching pedigree, coming from back under the Saban tree and now, went to FAU and now back at Ole Miss and just really, killing the portal market for sure, but just having a good season. And he saw something in this guy that played under him at FAU and said, "Hey, come over here, come coach with us." In my mind, that's a really big, just recognition of potential talent. Um, and I think again, it's another young guy that recruiting wise and just energy wise and that relationship with the players, the defensive backs especially, this is kind of I don't want to say our biggest question mark, but it is a question mark as far as what we have returning and the production that we're going to need. We need to get off the field. So having a guy that literally can say, hey, this is what you do. I've been here, done this. Watch this tape. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Um, I just think this is going to be a great hire and somebody that's going to help our team and the secondary, those DBs, just grow and get better under his leadership. What do you think about Devon Brown on staff?
Well, like we said before, that I feel like we're repeating it ad nauseum, but SEC connection. Someone who helped the Rebels defense hold opponents to 25 points per game and forcing 19 turnovers. I ain't mad at that. And the fact that he is still young and can speak, the players' language and knows how these young fellas talk, and talk to them. I think that's a huge bonus. I think this is a great get for Helton.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to the next coach. This is the offensive line and one of our assistant offensive coordinators. This is Zach Langford. He is returning. So one of the few returning coaches. Langford returned to WKU in February of 2019 for his second stint with the Hilltoppers and currently serves as the co-offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach. He was the tight ends coach during the 2019 and 20 seasons and served as a quality control role on the offense in 2021. Previously, Langford spent 3 seasons at WKU from 2014 to 16, and his time on the Hill coincided with 3 consecutive bowl victories and 2 consecutive Conference USA championships. In his first stint, Langford assisted with the offensive line and helped to develop one of the program's all-time greatest offensive line groups in 2015 and 16. Langford previously coached at Faulkner University and served as the Associate Director of Recruiting and Player Development at UAB, managing the program's on-campus recruiting efforts and high school relations. In his playing career, he played tight end at UAB with his career ending in 2009. So we're talking about the offensive line. In this air raid system that we, are known to run, is one of the most, if not the most important position. If you can't block and keep the quarterback clean long enough to get those reads and those throws off, you're lost. You're not going to have time to let a play develop, let drives develop, and score points. So this guy coming back, and he's been at Western before, obviously left and came back. And I think the fact that he was a recruiting and player development director at UAB, I think that kind of lends some credit and some credentials of his that he's got relationships in the recruiting grounds that UAB, Birmingham is not far from where we are, just straight down 65. So again, I think that's going to help in our recruiting efforts for those offensive linemen. And then obviously, he's been here, done that when we had one of the greatest offensive lines with, Halpin and Forrest Lamp back in 15-16. When we were just mauling everybody and nobody could get to the quarterback. And if you've listened to Bailey Zappi and Austin Reed the last couple of years, they'll put a lot of shine on the offensive line and just how good they are, because they have to be good to make him look good. And sometimes they don't get credit, but the proof's in the pudding. Our coaching has been stellar, and bringing the offensive line coach back is going to be huge, especially because we are replacing some pieces, some players. We'll dive into that when we get to their position group. But the coaching and the expectation, the standards is going to be the same. So I'm really happy for that. Tyler, what do you think about Zach and his coaching with the offensive line?
Oh no, I'm thrilled that he came back because because you're right, the offensive line is one of the most undercredited positions I believe is out there on the field, and without them, you ain't got an offense at all. And he was here under Brom's tenure, so he knows what you got to have if you want to win a conference championship, let alone a bowl game. I'm thrilled that he came back. I'm glad that he ain't been picked out because he's also offensive coordinator number 2. So I'm just happy he is here again, and I believe he's going to have the offensive line ready to go because we have lost some players that we're going to need to be positions going to need to be refilled.
All right, the next coach we're going to talk about is the outside linebacker coach. Last year was occupied by Michael Hutchings. This year we've hired Jamar Chaney from the University of Florida, SEC school again. This will be his first season on the Hill. He's made his way to the Hill by way of the University of Florida, where he was a recruiting coordinator and defensive analyst working with the team's linebackers in 2022. Between stops at Florida, Chaney worked as a senior defensive analyst for his alma mater, Mississippi State, where he played linebacker for 4 seasons and was team captain for 3 of those seasons while making 286 tackles and 6 sacks in 49 games. His efforts led to him being selected by the Philadelphia Eagles in the 7th round of the 2010 draft. Chaney would also go on to play for the Falcons, Broncos, and the Raiders in the NFL. This is a hire. Kind of, where do I start? With everything that I love about it. 1, came from the SEC. 2, if you follow him on Twitter, this man is recruiting. And he was a team captain and was a recruiting coordinator at the University of Florida. So 1, he's a natural leader. A 3-year team captain says a lot about this guy. Even as a young guy, he was a leader. Recruiting coordinator down in the Florida area. Can you say pipeline? That you want to keep that inroad to the Florida area. And now you got a guy who played at Florida, he played at Mississippi State, but coached at Florida, recruited in Florida, and then, he went to the NFL. So this guy, the energy he brings on Twitter, every time we get a commit, he's got a nice little GIF, a little video up, put a little shimmy shake on it. Again, a younger guy, a little older than the other guys, but still a young guy energy. You could just tell with his experience again, SEC as a player, as a coach, NFL as a player. Um, this is exactly the kind of hire you want to see. This is somebody that is, several years from now, whatever it's going to be, he's going to grow, develop to, a highly sought after linebacker coach, defensive coordinator, wherever that may be. I hope it's here. But it's going to be a symptom of winning when our defense is just balling out and we're continuing to recruit high level linebackers like we just did. Just a week or two ago, we got a commitment from the number one linebacker in JUCO, Jamar Chaney. You're welcome. I'm really excited for this hire. He's brought nothing but good energy to that linebacker group and to the staff, and I think the sky's the limit for his potential. And I'm really excited for him. Tyler, how do you feel about him?
Oh, I mean, you already know how I feel. Give me all the SEC coaches that you can. Give me all the SEC personnel that you can. I mean, him being the recruiter coordinator for Florida definitely does not hurt. And the fact that he played linebacker at Mississippi State, I mean, that alone speaks for itself. And being in the NFL, I think he's going to definitely have our outside linebackers and players ready to attack the ball and attack different points inside the other team's offensive line. I mean, this dude right here, gosh, I'm excited for him to be here.
Yeah, now the next one, we're going to talk about our inside linebacker coach, and this one touches a little bit of a personal, nerve or whatever you want to call it with me, because last year that position was occupied by Travis Cunningham, and since then we've hired Davis Merritt. Travis Cunningham took a job at Appalachian State. For those of you who don't know, he was my neighbor literally across the street from me. So I got to know him and his wife and their two children very well. But he had an opportunity to go work with a defensive coordinator he would work with in the past, took a job at Appalachian State, and they have obviously since moved on. But, that's been tough on our family on the personal side of things, just because we got to know them very well. They were good people, good family, good coach, somebody you hate to lose, but the show must go on, and the common theme must go on. We hired Davis Merritt from Georgia, SEC, Georgia. This will be his first season on the Hill. He joined the Hilltoppers after a successful 2-year run at Georgia, where he helped the Bulldogs win back-to-back national championships. He was a defensive quality control coordinator while helping assemble one of the most dominant defenses in all of college football. Before his time at Georgia, Merritt spent the 2020 campaign at Ole Miss as a senior defensive player personnel analyst. This was after a 3-year stint at Florida Atlantic as a defensive quality control assistant. So, another SEC guy, another Georgia guy, along with Carson Hall. With our linebackers now, and Georgia's been known to have, just dominating, feared linebackers. Again, this is recruiting inroads. This is Georgia SEC upper echelon. Also Ole Miss experience, FAU. Former conference mate of ours. So a younger guy again. I don't think there's anything not to like about, again, another hire with SEC pedigree. Younger guy that's just going to bring that energy, that recruiting, that knowledge to this staff and to our players. And it's a common theme, and I really wanted to touch on it every time it came up because, like we said in the beginning, Helton has been masterful not only on the player replacement side of things. Players come, players go, but coaches come, coaches go, and all these hires, while still unknown on paper, they look really, really, really good. There's nothing not to like about these hires. Obviously, there's going to be growing and learning on their behalf. First time for several of them being in a position coach position, but the lead guys, with Langford and Summers back, there's and LaRussa back, we have several guys in leadership positions that are going to help guide them to where they need to be and where they need to go and what they need to do. So again, another hire that I'm super excited about. Glad to have him on staff. I can't wait to see what our inside linebackers look like and how they develop and grow. Tyler, what do you think about Davis Merritt?
Oh, I mean, just thrilled to have him. I think if we can get these, if he can get these players to perform like he did at Georgia, I mean, good gosh, I mean, just give us a championship already. I mean, you look back at these coaches, like I said, SEC again. I guess we really got something with the Georgia coaches, the Ole Miss coaches. I think I think the inside linebackers this year should be just rushing the ball. If we don't sack the quarterback half a dozen times or 10 times a game, I mean, what are we doing here? But no, I'm really excited for Davis Merritt to come coach for Western.
Yeah, I agree. Going to talk about, just touch on some other coaches. We're not going to talk about their experience or where they came from or what they're doing. We're just going to touch on some people that if you follow along on Twitter, you're going to see them retweeting stuff, especially recruiting wise. First of all, we got Nick Eulenhop. He's been here since the Sanford days. He's our director of football operations. We got Zachary Crane. He's our director of scouting. Megan Reeder, who's our director of recruiting operations. And then we've got some quality control guys and girls and graduate assistants. We've got Braden Herdick, who's a defensive quality control. Luke Johnson, who's a graduate assistant with linebackers. Zach Mizell, who's an offensive quality control. Matt Pulford, who's a special teams quality control. Garrett Schwetman, Schwetty, special teams quality control. And then we've got Carter Webb, who's a graduate assistant with the offensive line. So, and several of those guys have been here for more than just 1 year. So, again, when I look at those type of coaches of quality control, as we went through our coaching hires, several of those people had been in quality control positions or graduate assistant positions, and then they went to a quality control, and now they're a position coach. So, I look at that as kind of backfilling your cupboard. You always want to have a plan for, if my coordinator leaves, I got a linebacker coach I can move up, and then a quality control guy can move into that position. I think it's always about developing and building that depth of your coaches, whether that's building it internally or whether that's going out and finding that next superstar hire that's an up and comer, that you're going to get, nothing but good references from in the coaching world. I think we've just got a lot of really good and special talent up and down this coaching staff. Yeah, there are 7 new guys out of the 10, but I don't expect the expectations or the results of each of those groups to change. We're here to win ball games. We're here to win a conference championship. We're here to win a bowl game. If we can compete for a New Year's Six bowl, eventually a playoff berth when that's expanded. We're not going to settle for average or mediocre. And I think each of these hires kind of really highlights that point of finding the best talent, no matter who it is or where they come from, and you get them on your team. And while they're here, you get the most out of them that you can. So I'm really excited. Again, I think, this coaching staff, while unknown, I'm really optimistic about what to expect and what we're going to see. And I'm just happy, man. And this is really my favorite part of the off season. We've got the Feel Still magazine. We've read everything we can. We've been on WKU Sports. We've read the bios of each of these guys. Now we're really sinking our teeth into this roster, starting with the coaches, Coming up soon, we've got quarterbacks, and we're going to talk about every single person, just like we just did with the coaches. We're going to talk about every single person, people who left, people who are here, what to expect, who's going to be the breakout guy, who's going to be the MVP, hot takes for the season, for every single position. If you follow along and listen to our entire breakdown series, you're going to hear every name, every player, and what we expect out of that group. So, again, I'm excited. This is my favorite part of the off season. Leading up to that September 2nd kickoff with USF. It's coming quick. So I'm excited for it. I know, Tyler, I know you're excited for it. We're getting ever close to kickoff, now less than 2 months away. So, those are my final words. If you got any final words, go ahead and give them to us. If not, give us that sign off and let's get out of here.
All right, man. No, you look at these head coaches, and yeah, they may be unknown, but if you look at Western football throughout, the last few years, most of our best players have really been unknown. Austin Reed, coming in from a small school, setting a record. And no, I'm just really excited for this off season to where we can look through these positions and the players and hopefully give our knowledge or our opinion on the players and stuff, so our fans and our listeners will have a greater understanding of what's going to be on the field this year. You look back at these coaches. I mean, there's championships in all their pedigrees. And so I'm looking forward to them helping us, move up to that next, the next bowl win, the next conference championship. And you're right, maybe one day getting into the New Year's Six Bowl. I mean, why not? Why can't we? But there's nothing better than a nice September football game, and I'm excited for that to finally get here and watch Western Hilltopper victory. But with that, Moth, who has it better than us?
Tyler, nobody, buddy.
Go Tops.
Hey, go Tops, man. We'll catch y'all later. Bye.